Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today, I'm super excited and beyond thrilled because I am joined by the amazing Beka Westrup. She is the author of the Seldom Wings, which is like literally one of my favorite books, and it's part of a series, and the second one is out now, so if you haven't read these, what are you waiting for? She is also the author of Song of Dark Tides and Demons and Roses. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited. I'm totally fangirling. I have loved you since that book came out. I was on your ARC team originally for the Seldom Wings, and I think I read that book in like half a day. I like devoured the thing. I couldn't put it down. I was like, go away, leave me alone. I'm reading. So I really, really loved it. Those characters hold a soft spot in my heart. Your book was one of the first books I ever read as an ARC reader. Like, I think it was like the second book ever read, and I immediately wrote you after I finished it, and I was like, I love this book so much. So I'm very excited.
That's awesome. And I have so loved having you on my ARC team too. You've been so enthusiastic and just an awesome reader. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm very honored to be on it. It's a great team. All the people on there are so supportive and full of energy, and they just are, everybody has each other's back. We're like, can you give me some love? Can you do this? Can you check this out? And everybody's just like there. I love that team. They're really great. So
I have the best readers. I swear I do. They're awesome.
yeah, they're very, very great. So I wanted to give a little bit of a background so that people can kind of get to know you more and know more about your books. Since, I don't know, we could do both because I know both are a series. So let's start with the Seldom Wings, and then we'll go over to Demons and Roses. So for that Seldom Wings, where did you get the inspiration for that?
Actually a dream. Well, most things are a dream with me, but I had a dream about like the sick old love and having to go back and kind of help her. And I had a dream about the wings too, and I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I've always really loved angels and stuff, like even as a kid, like I've always wanted to write about angels.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of ran with the idea and it became what it is. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, I have to show this really quick since we're on. So I ordered this. It's the like special edition, and it's gorgeous. And I just have to show this because it's these two live rent free in my brain, but they are stunning, and it's just everything. So anyway, I love it. There's that one.
Everything about that edition is so good. I love
It
that
is.
special edition so much.
It's gorgeous. I hope they do one for book 2 and book 3 so that I can have them all matching. I love when everything matches.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So then for Demons and Roses, what was that inspiration for that one?
So a dream. It was a really weird dream, and sometimes I have like snippets like in my dreams and then I just run with it, but I woke up from that dream and I was like, "Huh, interesting. I wonder what a book would be like if you wrote about a husband who gets possessed by a demon." And so I just started like outlining and I was like, "Oh, this would be interesting." And yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a very big discovery writer, so I'll have like general ideas of stuff and then I'll have ideas that I know I want to go into the book, but most of the book just comes out as I'm writing it. So,
Okay. So not much of a planner kind of, but more of like the just go as you go.
yeah, I think it's called like a plancer.
Yeah, planter. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
awesome.
like kind of planning, but not too much. I feel like if I plan too much, then I get bored,
Hmm.
like prematurely. So
Yeah. And then for Song of Dark Tides, is that one going to have any more coming out from it, or is it a standalone?
that's a standalone, yeah. And that is a book I actually wrote to contract because my indie publisher, they were looking for a mermaid book. And I was like, I've always really loved mermaids too. I bet I could write a book about it. And so I came up with like the general concept and then I sold it to my publisher.
That's
So
great. It's such a unique take, a whole realm of the mermaids and all that. Like, I really liked it. It was really, really well done. And I have a little picture. So those are the two characters. It's very
so
good.
good.
You're so good. It's very great read. All of these are great. You will not go wrong with any of her books. I literally, when she puts one out, I get it. So
Thank
So
you.
does writing energize you or does it make you tired?
Usually it energizes me, and writing in general is like very therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually feel a dip in energy when I'm not actively writing, which is where I'm at right now. I like forced myself to take a long-term break,
Mm-hmm.
but like my body is buzzing. Like I really need to get back into it, which I plan to do in November. But usually it energizes me. I love writing. It's like my
Nice.
hobby, my like life. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you always want to be a writer?
I have always been a writer. I wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I was younger, but I did always write. It started with songwriting when I was a teenager, so I would do like poetry and like songwriting. And for a long time I actually did music. Like I had a family friend that I would record songs with and stuff. So I thought that that was where I was headed for a while, but I've always really loved like poetry. Anyway, so that turned into like short stories. And then I kind of put it down for a while when I was like actively having kids. And then after my second, I got like postpartum pretty bad. And writing is where I went as like a therapy and like to heal myself. And then I never looked back after that. I've been like in full book writing mode since then.
Wonderful. It's great. Well, you're really, really great at it. So you definitely
Thanks.
found your calling. So what do you think your like writing kryptonite is?
Writing kryptonite. That's a really good question. I want to say like the in between chapters because I have like the big plot points like already in my head when I start writing, but like sometimes getting to those points can be pretty like struggle bus for me. So I would say the in between chapters, like when nothing big is happening and it's like a transition from one place to another in the book, those are the places where I struggle for
You
sure.
struggle. Yeah. So do you ever get like writer's block?
Yes, more recently, but I think it's more of a mental thing than an
Mhm.
actual like not having creativity thing because I had a really bad one and it was like right after my brother died. And I always bring this up. I always bring up my brother dying, but it was like a really big thing that made writing really hard
Yeah.
because writing is my therapy. I go into those feelings that I have, especially with like the Obsidian Blaze, and like that whole series as a whole like talks about grief a lot, and so that was really hard. So when I go into a project that has relations to what I'm going through, that's when I start getting like writing block, but I have to like work through it. And I think that's normal. I think most of the time when we get like writer's block, it's not actually we don't have creativity or we don't have ideas anymore. It's more we're not allowing ourselves to fully like let out the things that we want to,
Hmm.
or we're afraid that if we do it, that it's going to come out wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could totally see that. That's a big. I'm so sorry about that. That's a huge thing to happen in your life, and I definitely think it would cause a derailment of any area in your life when that kind
Yeah.
of stuff happens. So, but it's good that you have that to be like the cathartic way of getting it out in a safe space, and then if you choose to share it with others you can, or if you keep it for yourself you have it to like look on when
Yeah.
you're struggling. That's what I feel like books are. A lot of the books, like my comfort reads, are the ones like when I'm having a really rough time or I'm like really in my head and I'm like stuck on something. Reading a book can a lot of the time change your perception and perspective and allow you to like open up to the emotions you have in a safe space because they're not going to judge you. You're just there, and then also work through them on your own pace.
Yep.
So, because they talk at you,
100%.
the characters talk at you, but they're not talking at you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So,
They're like
I like
talking
that.
from you.
Yeah.
It's at least in like the writing sense. And
Yeah.
I actually came across this really cool video of Andrew, I think it's Andrew Garfield. I'm really
Hmm.
bad with names, but he was reading this poem and I shared it to my story, but basically he was reading this poem about like a woman who doesn't want to wear a bikini anymore because she thinks she's old, and this is coming from like the point of view of the husband and how he's like sad about that because this is the woman that he loves, and he just started crying even though like he's not that person. He felt like the emotions
Yeah,
so deeply, and he said art takes us to places we can't get to any other way.
it does.
And I thought that was amazing.
It totally does. It does. Like when you're in it and you're like feeling all the feelings and you're like, it's almost like it's like that moment right before the volcano erupts and you're like, I can't let it out. I can't let it out. I have to keep it in. And then you just like have that outlet. Like for me, that's reading. And then you can slowly like pressure release it and let it out. And it won't be so explosive. Sometimes it is, but a lot of the time it's not with through art and through stuff like that because you feel that emotion and you kind of feel like, oh, you're not alone. There's someone else out there feeling it. So
Yes. 100%.
yeah, that's what I love about books and I love about reading is that it kind of can help with that aspect of the mental health. So awesome.
Even with writing, it's the same thing. It does the same thing.
Yeah. I've heard that from other authors. It's very cathartic and it helps you, if you're having a thing you have to figure out, you write it out and you work through it, that it can help change that, like I said, perspective within yourself. So if you could go in a time machine or you could portal to another time back when you were first starting to write, what would be something you'd tell your younger writing self?
Really cherish the moments and the time frame when you just get to write for yourself. That's one thing with actually publishing and like putting your work out there. Like those books are no longer yours. Like they become the readers just as much as they are yours. And people get to judge you, and that's okay. That's their right. But I really miss just getting to write for myself. Like I miss the feeling because there was like so much joy in it in the beginning. To just, hey puppy, it's okay. It's just the neighbors. It's okay. Yeah, just enjoy the joy.
Yeah. That's good advice, to absorb it before you release it into the world.
Yep.
So you are a fantasy writer. So I ask all of the people that fantasy write, if you could be any mythical creature or being, what would it be and why?
I would be a Pegasus. I want to fly.
Now, would you be a shifter Pegasus or just a straight Pegasus?
That's a good question. I would be a shifter Pegasus. That way I get like best of both worlds, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So within writing, what do you feel like when you're writing the opposite sex, that point of view? Do you struggle with it? No.
Love writing from the male POV. Like actually, I really, really love it. Which is why I'm excited. The book that comes after Demons and Roses, it's going to turn into dual. So for the next book, because the next book features, so the female is the eternal and so the male is the human. So I'm really excited because I get to go back into dual POV, and I don't do it as much as I would like to. So
yeah, I love the glimpses that we get when you do it, and it's so good. So I was like, I'm going to ask her about that because I was like, is it hard? Is it difficult? So will we see overlay characters in Demons and Roses, or are they all going to be different?
You will as the series goes on, because you will definitely see Levi in the next Demons and Roses, but you won't see Rose because it actually goes back in time for the next book. So it's before Levi meets Rose, but then you get to kind of see Levi like wishing for his mate, and then you're like,
Okay.
and in the future, like later on in the series, you'll see the crossovers with like the different characters, because the first book, Demons and Roses, is contemporary, and then it kind of goes into like fantasy themes. The next one is going to be back in Viking times. So you'll see like Viking time Earth and also the underworld. And then I'm going to bounce back into contemporary because I do eventually want to do Astra's story and kind of have like the closure between Astra and Rose.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'm going after that. I have a couple ideas, but so the time frames are gonna be all wonky, but it's okay. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
I'm excited. So what is your heart most difficult scene to write?
The sad scenes. Yeah, the sad scenes. The scene at the end of Demons and Roses, I actually made myself cry between Astra and Rose.
Evolve.
Yeah, that one was really hard because I am someone who has really strong female relationships. Like I have two best friends and those relationships are super important to me. So as I'm writing that, I'm like I can imagine it being my friend. This is hard. Yeah.
Yes, that gutted me, but it was so good. You wrote that well. So you write so well when you write those scenes. Like they pull at the heartstrings, and then they kind of piece you back together, and it's just all the feels. So then on the counter art, what is your favorite scene to
I
write?
love like the family scenes. Like when there's a lot of like characters and there's like banter and they're like all talking to each other. Those are my favorites.
Yeah.
Because I get to play with a whole bunch of different characters instead of it just. And I also like the romance scenes when like the two main characters are just talking to each other or
Mhm.
like fighting or
Yeah.
whatever. But I really like banter dialogue. That's my favorite.
I love banter. Banter is my 100% top favorite thing of reading books is the banter between the two characters. Um, Sorry, I'm scrolling down to
You're
my little characters and thing. So, out of your characters, which one do you think is most like you?
most like me. Oh man. That's hard because I feel like every character is like little bits and pieces of me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Sia is like the worst parts of me, but like, just like allowing those worst parts out
Yeah.
into her and allowing her to be her own character. Um, and it also makes me really happy when people are like, I love Sia, even though she's a brat, like,
Yes.
because I'm like, she has my worst thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, that's her. So I feel like in that way, she's like the worst parts of myself, but like
Mm-hmm.
in a loving way, like,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
an acceptance way.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Sia. She's great. She's feisty. She's great. I think forever, I put it on the card that I made for the series. And I was like, "You're ruthless, darling." That right there is like my perfect explanation of her as a character, and I love when he says that. And I'm just like, because it was so 100% true. That is like her in a nutshell,
Yep,
and she's
she is
great.
ruthless, man. Sometimes she makes choices and I'm like, well, that was a choice. I will let you do it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you have like where you start out, you're like, "No, we're going this way," and then they're like, "No, we're not. We're going over here." When you're writing,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. All the time. The characters are in control. I just like give them life and they just do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. So
Yep.
when you're writing like a plot twist or like a big pivotal change in the story, do you have like that in the back of your mind? Like, is that some of the things that come up when you first start writing, or is those things just kind of happen like they happen on the page to us, where they're like, "Whoa, that came out of nowhere"?
Sometimes I have them in mind. Sometimes it just comes out while writing. I always have the ending like in mind. Like I always know how a book is going to end. The stuff in the middle I'm a lot more lenient with it. I'm like, you guys can just take me wherever you want to go and I'm along for the ride. But I know for my first book that I ever published, it's called Beneath the Bloody Aurora. And the plot twist at like 3/4 of the way in, I did not know. I didn't know that until I wrote it. And I was like, I can't believe this happened. But it's funny because then you go back into like what you've already written and it's like you're leaving foreshadowing for yourself. Like the
Yeah,
entire way forward and you're like this was always going to be. I just didn't know it.
you
You
didn't know it
know?
at the time.
The
Yeah.
subconscious is so tricky.
Yes. This one,
It's so
I am dangling from a cliff, and I'm so sad.
I
Yes.
know. I know it. I'm sorry, but There is foreshadowing in there for what happens next.
Okay.
So you
I might have to
can
go
find,
reread.
yeah,
Do a reread, do some highlighting, and see. So how do you find time to write? I know you're a mom and have a busy schedule. So how do you set aside like a word count or a chapter, a scene goal every day?
it really depends on the book. So both of my kids are in school now, so I have a lot more time. But it's really up to the book and like how fast the book lets me go and how fast the characters are going. For the Obsidian Blaze, I wrote like the first, I want to say like 3 or 4 chapters like a year and a half ago. And then I put it down and then I didn't touch it for months. And then I came back and I wrote like all the way up to half. And then I took a month and then I finally finished the ending. So it's really like when the characters are ready to talk, I'll
Yeah.
sit down and write. And I have an awesome husband. My husband is great. He allows me the time to write when I need to. So like when he's off of work, then I'm allowed to go and like do my thing and he'll take care of the
Yeah.
kids and it's I have a lot of support, which I'm very thankful for.
That's really great. So, with writing, how long does it usually take you from when you get the idea to when you're publishing it on average?
I'd say about a year. It was about a year for Beneath the Bloody Aurora, or a year and a half. And I queried and everything between that too. And then the same thing with Song of Dark Tides, it was about a year. The Seldom Wings was a little bit longer because I did end up sending it to more editors. So I sent it to like a developmental editor and then I made like edits to it. So I think that one was probably about like 2 years before I finally got to the point where I was ready to publish it. And the Obsidian Blaze is like very large.
Yes.
So that one took way longer too. Yeah, that one was at least 2 years from like start to finish.
And then
Yeah.
that one's going to be one more book we'll get from that one. Are you going to do any offshoots with the side characters?
You'll see more of the side characters, but I in the third book. But for like other books in the same world, yes. I do have an idea for like a second gen series, another trilogy. Because in the first book, you kind of, like in the first series, this series, you kind of get like an idea of like there's curses in this world on like multiple different species.
Yes.
So the second gen series would be all about the curses and like trying to break the curses on the different species.
Ooh. Ooh, I like it.
But that is still ruminating in the back. I don't know when that will come, but
Yeah. Do you write it down or do you just keep it all up in your head?
write it down in Google Docs. So
Mhm.
I have like multiple different like documents. Like I have dream documents and then I have like story idea documents. And then once I get to the point where I feel like I'm writing down a lot of stuff just for one idea, I'll put it into its own document. And then like as I get ideas like throughout the day, I'll just
Put it
put
in.
it in there.
Nice. So, did you enjoy the process of designing, working with the designers to make the covers? Was that like an enjoyable process or nerve wracking?
It was really exciting, and I love the designer for the Seldom Wings covers. Her name is Faye, and she is amazing. She is so good. I saw one of her covers for a indie horror book, and I was like, "That's the vibe." And
Yes.
so I contacted her, and it was more affordable to do the series all at once. So that was the nerve-wracking part because I had to design all three of the covers. So I already have book three's cover. So I had to figure out how I wanted the series as a whole to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No,
that was a little nerve-wracking, but
I love this with the city. I think when I first talked to you about writing the card, I was like, can I please use that on the front of the card because it was so gorgeous. And then this one is beautiful. Oh,
yes.
and then the heart, of course. Let me show that one again. I've held these up a few times, but it's just
Yes,
gorgeous.
and that's Faye too. So Song of Dark Tides, Faye did that one as well. I got my indie press to to hire her for it because I was like, I love Faye so much. Demons and Roses was done by Selkie Designs, and she is also amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous covers. And I like this one's like you can't feel it, but it's like raised. Like it's embossed and raised, and I love it. It was such a nice detail. So
I love foil.
yes, me too. Well, I am a card crafter by my day job, and I love to do like foil press and embossing and like anything to do with like anything with foil. You have me. I love foil, so I love it. So, in your opinion, what makes a great story?
The characters, the journey. I feel like the journey is the story.
Yeah.
Which is why I love flawed female characters so much. I feel like you don't see them very much. I feel like most female characters are not given the permission to be flawed, like really flawed. And so I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the flaw and working towards healing in books, and I love reading about it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you're reading, what are your go-to tropes that you like to read?
I love forced proximity. Anything with that. I love arranged marriage, obviously. I love dark romances. I've been super into that. I started reading these like billionaire romances. I'm also a sucker for that. Pretty much any type of romance I'm a sucker for. So, yeah, as long as it's got a good romance, I'm in.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first, it's a hard question, but, or general first romance that you read that like hooked you?
So, for fantasy, I've always been like super picky when I was a teenager on like what I would read or what would hook me. At first it was actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but her name is Sarah Dessen, and it was like YA romances, and they were contemporary. You should look her up. That was my childhood, man. And it was actually the very first one I read by her. I'm trying to remember the title, but it was basically about a girl in an abusive relationship, like, and so you got to see like her journey going into this relationship and then realizing that it was abusive and then coming out of it and like, healing from it. Oh man, that's gonna bother me that I can't remember the title.
I can look it up after and put it in the below description,
please.
so that if anyone wants to check it out, they can do that.
Yeah. And then so that one was a lot less romance, but then I got turned on to all of her other books that was like full on like teenage romances. And so I read all of those. I'm pretty sure I've read all of her books. And then when it comes to fantasy and fantasy romance, the book that got me hooked onto romantasy is actually Victoria Aveyard, the Red Queen series. I loved that series as a teenager. It was so good. I was like, oh my gosh, people write this? People write? This is cool. And then then it was all over for me.
Then you went down the rabbit hole.
I did. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So, on this journey, what do you feel is like the most surprising thing you've learned?
That's also that I can do it. Yeah, like sometimes I can't believe that I wrote as many books as I have already because I get hyper fixated, and then when I finally like come down and calm down, I'm like, oh, I actually did that. That's crazy. Confidence in myself has been the most surprising thing. And like I think what helps with that is having such amazing readers like you and all of the people on my street team and people who are like, I love your books, and I'm like, I didn't know that people would love my books. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I love that. That's what I love, and that's why I do these episodes, is because I want to support indie authors and people that may not see them, and because of it's different with traditional publishing versus indie. It's a harder market to like get your stuff out there. So I wanted to do something, me being a small business owner myself and your own small business in a way. I wanted to support that and like let people see behind the books, get to know you, see how amazing you are as a writer, and then have that like excitement to say, I want to read these books and I get to know her. Like, this is really cool. So that's what I love to do. And I feel like the community, the indie author community and the readers, they're such a eclectic, welcoming group that support each other. And it's been a really big honor to be a part of that for sure.
I 100% agree with that. And I love that you do this. I love all the people who are doing like the interviews with indie authors because you're right, the indie like reader group is like
Mm-hmm.
so welcoming and usually so sweet and kind. Um yeah. I love that people love crazy stories like about winged beings and shifters and all of that fun stuff. I think it's great.
It is great. We can escape our lives. I always bring up the Instagram post where the girl, and I don't know how these girls do it. I'm like, I want to write them and be like, how did you do that? Where they open the book and then they fall backwards and then they're like in the world. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I just want to dive in and
Yes.
disappear for a while. So, do you use any of the people around you for the personalities of your characters, or they all just come from your imagination?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think we take pieces of ourselves and pieces of all the people we've ever loved, all the people that we love or we hate, and we make stories out of them. I think it would be impossible not to because our perception of the world is formed by all the people around us. So,
So, what is your favorite part about being a writer?
the process, just the actual act of writing, letting my thoughts out. There's a line in the Obsidian Blaze where says to herself, "My head is so loud sometimes I forget that I'm the only one in it." And I feel like that is a line that is 100% from me because I don't talk as much as I probably should. Like I feel like I have a lot to say, but it's all stuck in my head. Or if I try to say something out loud, like it gets messed up between my brain and my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But writing, I'm always able to like get myself out onto the page,
Yeah,
like in the fullness of
yeah,
me. So I
yeah.
think the process,
That quote was like spot on. Like I was like, she's always been relatable to me because I am very snarky and I have attitude and I don't back down from it. And right there, because I am totally a person that is so loud in my head that it's almost deafening
yeah,
sometimes, and it can set off a lot of emotional and mental grief because my
yeah,
brain just won't stop.
yeah.
So I totally felt relatable to her in that moment for sure.
I
So
love that. And see, like moments like that, like getting to connect with people on a daily basis is so cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I love it. I love it because you see people out in the real world, but they're not like you. Like you engage with them, but it's on a different level when it's like somebody who like reads your stuff or is into that kind of stuff. You have like a deeper connection, and it's like a deeper understanding. I love
yeah,
the fact that you can feel like you're not alone in this world of
yeah,
fantasy and writing and all of that, because there's other people that like it as much as you or have similar things like you, and it's like a deep connection.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I love that about it. So within your process of like publishing, how did it change from your first book to more recent books? Did you change a lot in how you did things?
For sure. Because the first book was through an indie press, so I didn't have to do a lot of the like details, like getting ISBNs and like uploading it to Ingram and just like all the back end stuff I didn't have to do. So, but what was really great about my indie press is they taught me how to do that. And the owner was always willing to like explain how to do things and like why they did it that way. So I got to kind of like learn on the job with my first one, I feel like. And then from then on, I self published most of my other books. So big difference.
Yeah.
but not so much that I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. So within writing now, do you do anything to like improve your craft? Like reading classes, books, anything like that, or just more writing?
I definitely do all of that. So I'll read craft books, I'll watch like master classes, and I'll also take like I'll learn from other writers. So one of the best things I think I ever did for myself was making other author friends and trading manuscripts and learning how to edit and learning how to take criticism from them to improve myself. So I've learned a lot of things from like my fellow writers. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I would
That's
encourage everybody who wants to be an author to find author friends and to trade manuscripts and be willing to like read other people's work because and just like read in general. Like try to read as much as possible because that's how you get better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So with reading, now that you're out there and you have reviews, do you read reviews or do you stay away from them?
Most of the time I stay away from them, except for when I just release something. So I will go back and I will read anywhere from like 3 stars up from like Goodreads or what's that other one, Storygraph, and I will read those reviews. Anything under 3 stars though, I don't read because at that point I just accept that my book was not for them. And so I don't want to take advice or fill my head with the opinions of people who of readers who are just not my readers, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like that it's a really hard line to tread. So
Mhm.
yeah, reviews are hard.
Yeah.
I would just avoid them unless you're like tagged or something, and most people who tag don't tag
Yeah.
you in like bad reviews.
Yeah. I
So
do
I
that.
see most of them on Instagram more often than not.
Yeah, I feel like it would be counterproductive because like you said, those readers just aren't your readers. They just didn't vibe with the story.
Yep.
And that's okay. There's a
That
book
is
out there for
okay.
them. It's just not this one. So
Yep.
yeah. So out of your characters, who do you feel is like the best male character out of all the guys you've written?
Well, that's a hard one because I love Lee. I've spent so much time with Lee, and I feel like the more time you spend with a character, the more attached to them you get. So I'm very attached to Lee.
Yes,
Very
he is
attached.
the best book boyfriend, but Levi, ooh, he's good.
I know. Levi is just a fun time.
Yes,
He
yes,
is super
exactly.
fun. But I also really love Nikolai, which is from Beneath the Bloody Aurora, which is my first book. And that might be because he's the first book boyfriend that I ever published.
Yeah,
So I always have a very soft spot for him in my heart.
yeah.
Yeah,
Lee is just, ooh, I love Lee.
I do.
So, do you have a way how you show your love language, or what is yours? I guess.
Mine is physical touch and acts of service. And I think that probably comes across pretty well in books
Yeah.
because I do love a good spice,
Yes.
and I do tend to make the males like very acts of service heavy.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
my love language too. Acts of service.
yeah.
Yes. Totally is. So when you're writing your characters, do you do like a character profile on them?
It depends. It really depends. Sometimes I'll do like the extra work and like make like a profile for them. But sometimes I just write. Specifically with the Seldom Wings, I didn't do profiles on any of the characters because they were once they had formed in my head, like I knew them. Yeah. Not usually, but I have done it before. Yeah.
Let's see. What is something unique or quirky about you that we may not?
The only thing I can think of is I feel like, and I've had it pointed out to me before that I'm like the epitome of like hyper focus or like hyper fixation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can come over to my house one day and I'll be like baking all day and I'll just like have a ton of things that I've baked. Or you can come over another day and I'll be like sewing. I'll be like sewing blankets and stuff. So I just have a tendency to like hyperfixate on things. So
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna find when you show up at my house.
That's awesome. That's great though. I love to sew. I went to school for that. So that's what my
Really?
degree is in. Yeah. So
That's
I love that.
awesome.
I totally could go down that rabbit hole with you and be
Nice.
sewing all day. I actually, this is my craft office for my cards. I work out of here for that. And so it's filled with paper everywhere
Yeah.
and cutting dies and machinery and printers. But then my mom lives down the street from me. And
That's
so
awesome.
her upstairs has all of my fabric because it literally would not fit in here because I have like 8 sewing machines. So I totally get the fixation thing that you're talking about. So yeah, it's definitely, and baking is so much fun. And then you eat too much, but still, it's great.
Yeah. I've been doing like sourdough. Like that's my thing right now. Is and I have this little sourdough starter and its name is Bubbles. And I've made like so much sourdough stuff.
I'm so jealous.
problem.
I've been wanting to try. I got a bread machine to make bread, and I was like, I should make sourdough because I love sourdough, but I'm so intimidated by it that I haven't even tried.
Don't be intimidated. It's so fun. Really. All you have to do is mix together flour and water in like a big jug, whatever you have, a mason jar.
Huh?
And just like keep feeding it every day. And eventually it'll start like bubbling and growing and you'll be like, yeah, it's ready now. And that's your sourdough starter. You don't need to buy sourdough starter stuff online. You don't need to do any of that. Just flour and water.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try
You
it,
should.
and I'll send you a picture and be like, is this good?
Do it.
Because I love that. I love sourdough. My son loves it too, so
It's so good. It tastes so
definitely
much better.
It
I
does.
love it.
It does, and it's better for you. I think, like they say, it's better to eat that than to eat the regular white bread because of like the biome that it helps with your gut and stuff. So I'm gonna try it.
You should.
So you briefly touched on the other books that are coming up, but what is next in line for you?
I am going to be publishing a sapphic Christmas novella. I'm really excited about it. Basically, it's about a female Santa Claus. Her name is Mistletoe Claus. And her dad dies and her brother runs away from the North Pole. And so she is the one that has to then deliver presents. And she ends up making a delivery at a wrong house. And she runs into like an almost divorced woman named Nicole Strobe. And then her sleigh takes off, and Nicole has to help her track down her sleigh and save Christmas. And it's just like, it's so cute and like fun. And Santa has a Krampus side because Santa is an elf, so it's like the moon side.
Yeah.
Like the dark side of the elf, Krampus, and Santa. So I'm really excited. It's gonna be so fun.
I can't wait to read it. That's gonna be great. So my last question for you is, what message do you want readers to take away after reading your book?
That you are not alone. That it is okay to be the worst version of yourself, and even that version of yourself is still worthy of love.
A great message, and you definitely, that comes across in all of your books for sure. Definitely.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about your books and your writing process. I love you. Like, you're one of my favorite authors, and I can't wait to see more from you and support you in the future. And so if you haven't checked out her books, please do so. They are amazing. You have to read the Obsidian series in order for sure. But any of the books you can start with, they're all amazing. And she will have lots of great reads coming out later on, I'm sure. And I'm going to be expanding my bookshelf. I have like a bookshelf of her stuff. And I loved Obsidian Blaze so much, I made the cards for that series because I love them. But thank you so much for coming on, and definitely check her out. I'll put the links below where you can find her, and definitely send this to a book bestie if you know anyone that likes fantasy, dark fantasy, romance. They will love anything she writes. So again, thank you. Please like and subscribe, and bye-bye. We'll see you next time for another look behind the book.